I'll be filming my first YouTube video because you can do this and this is your journey, okay? You got this. Just stay consistent, stay resilient. You got this. Have you ever had a moment where you looked around and your life was not what you thought it was going to be? You were exhausted. Maybe you compromised one too many times. You settled. You recognized that things were not going in the direction that you had hoped. If you're starting over, this is the perfect place to be, and this is exactly for you. Maybe you have stayed in situations that have cost you your peace, and you notice that the people around you were happy for it to cost you your peace. In fact, that was like the payment of entry, and that's the role you fell into. Maybe you came from a family system that expected you to just show up, even if it meant abandoning yourself, or you came from a relationship that didn't actually value you, but valued the work that you did, but didn't pour back into you. If you're starting over, this is exactly for you. I'm Sydney. I am rebuilding my life, starting over, doing the whole mid-30s reinvention, and I am coming out of a really, really hard season of life. In fact, the hardest season of my life. I am currently a single mom and co-parenting, and that means time away from my son that I never imagined. If you had told me 10 years ago, this is going to end up with you being a single mom, I'd say absolutely not. Not me. No way. And there were just very basic things that I missed, and it came from a lot, and we'll dig into all of it. But today I just want to let you know, I'm not here because I've arrived or figured it all out, but I've learned enough to know that so much of this was avoidable. I'm here because I'm walking it out. I'm walking out of the toughness, and there are still struggles, but I recognize that is exactly why the Bible says rejoice in your trials. Our trials actually make us more resilient, bring us closer to Him, and life gets so much better. I know that if you're sitting here watching this video and you're in the thick of it, trust me, I understand what you're feeling. I was literally in a place where my son and I had a room reserved at a shelter because I wasn't sure how things were gonna go, and it had gotten pretty hairy, and I had no support from family that claimed to be family, and the people who showed up, the community that I've gained, the real family I've gained from that situation is absolutely priceless. And if I had not gone through all of that, I don't think I would have this depth of appreciation for the community I do have and for how people can actually show up for you. And we're just in a different season now. I know that it sounds crazy because nobody enjoys pain, nobody enjoys heartbreaks, but trials really are treasures. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that our trials reveal things that comfort never could. Some examples of this are what boundaries need strengthening, what beliefs need healing or a completely different script, a whole rewrite, what habits need changing, and which relationships need reevaluating. Again, the Bible doesn't say that trials feel good, but it says we are to rejoice in them because what they bring through us and from the pressing and what feels like so much pressure in those moments is truly gold. Your struggle is not proof that God is abandoning you. I know that in those moments it can feel really lonely and like, God, how did we even get here? It's proof that He's refining you because you are valuable. You're so valuable. And that can even be hard to reconcile because you may be coming from a situation where you were made to feel like you weren't valuable. So I'm here to tell you that was a lie. And even the devil doesn't believe the lies that he tries to convince you of. Alignment changes everything. There are a couple of things this season taught me that are, again, I would not have come out of this the way that I've come out of it if I would not have these nuggets of gold if I hadn't gone through that. Alignment, okay? This season that I've just come out of has taught me that when we are functioning in God's design for us, that things just work together exponentially. And it's not transactional. It's that as humans, we just make things complicated. It really doesn't have to be that complicated. There are consequences to sin. I'm just gonna call this out because nobody told me this. I was cohabitating and thought, we don't need to be married, whatever. And I'm not saying every marriage works out, but what I am saying is that when you are just being silly and boldly doing things in a way that is counter to what God has designed, it's going to be painful every single time, without a doubt. So take that if you can hear it. I hope you can, and just do things the right way. Sometimes obedience is lonely before it's fruitful. When you are in the realigning season, because that's what I really believe happens. I think that we get ourselves into a mess. We finally realize, like, God, I need your help. Oh, I forgot. It's just like the Israelites. We're like, I can just imagine how God he loves us. And being a mom, I can sometimes see, like, why are you doing that to yourself? And so that is what I call when we have our come to Jesus moment, and then we start realigning. That means saying no. And if you've not had boundaries and you've not said no before, the people you start saying no to might call you disrespectful. They might call you hateful. They might call you all kinds of things, and they don't even recognize that you saying no to them is actually an act of love and respect. You will have to make unpopular decisions, but choosing integrity will never, ever, ever, ever lead you wrong. You have to follow that conviction out of the mess, because the truth is, the mess you got yourself in, when you start choosing right, it's a system that expected you to behave a certain way. And when you start behaving a different way because you got clarity, that whole system is going to treat it like an attack. Just keep moving. The people who were maybe from the outside looking in, on paper supposed to be my closest people, were the people who were telling me I was wrong because I was breaking out of that system. Just background, and some of you may come from this. If you're the parentified daughter, if you've come from emotionally immature and enmeshed families, and you decide, hold on, like, this isn't okay. This isn't healthy. We're supposed to be autonomous and support each other. And disagreeing does not have to be an offense. It doesn't have to create such a big thing. In healthy systems, when people disagree, one person can say, oh, I just see that differently. The other one can say, oh, I just see that differently. You still love each other, you move forward, because it's not about controlling another person's thoughts or minds or world. If you're in a situation where, and this could be family, friends, relationship, work, if you're in a situation where you can't have healthy conflict, you need to get out of it. I'm just gonna say it because I wish somebody would have said it to me, regardless of how close they are. The irony here is my mom actually raised me and my sibling with this saying: it does not matter how much DNA you share with someone, that does not make them your family. And I have had to painfully learn that lesson, but it's freeing because ultimately I'm God's kid and we're all God's kids. So when we recognize who our real family is, we can just move from there. You don't need everyone to understand your choices when God is leading you somewhere. You will start noticing who is really for you, because the people who are really for you, when you tell them, hey, this is where God's leading me, they'll say, okay, how can I support you? Or just okay. If you're making choices and you know that you're on the right path, you know you're doing what God is telling you to do, and other people are offended, are mad, are trying to dissuade you and tell you to do other things, pay attention. That's information. Chaos is not our portion. It's just not. I grew up believing that chaos was normal, that emotional storms and the people around me were something that I should manage, that if I wasn't carefully, constantly scanning and calculating and thinking about everybody else's emotional world, somehow I was cold, or it's just grooming. It's grooming for control, and I'm gonna call it out and say what it is. I'm learning something different, that I can trust my body, because this season has also taught me that my body will show me when something is wrong even before my mind has the language for it. So your nervous system, if you are in situations or whenever you get around that person, like people have talked about, oh, this energy vampire, that, whatever. If you are around someone and you notice when you leave them, you just feel depleted, or you get anxious, like even thinking about going over to someone's house, and it does not matter who this person is on paper or these people are on paper, you can say no. You can create distance. When there is harm done, when there is trauma, and you say, this is very basic. This is like elementary school playground. Somebody hurts your feelings. You say, hey, I don't like that. That hurt my feelings. If they say, oh, I apologize. I didn't mean to do that, but I recognize that you didn't like that. How can we figure out how to do things better? That's healthy. If you say, hey, I don't like that, and someone says, well, you just have whatever. If that reaction happens, it's a hard no for me. At this point in my life, it's a hard no. The first example showed accountability, recognition, accountability, and then understanding that intent and impact are not the same thing. If you are telling someone, hey, that hurt my feelings, you're like, well, I didn't mean for it to, and that's it, and there's like that icky energy. No, that's not accountability. That is not owning impact. And here's for you, if this is something you struggle with, if it's hard for you to hear from someone, especially someone you love, if they're telling you that hurt my feelings, and you like your reaction is that, try to just say, I didn't mean to do that, but I recognize the impact it had on you. How can we do that better? That's repair. And if you come from trauma in any form, repair was probably, especially chronic stress and trauma, repair was probably nowhere to be found. In fact, if you attempted repair or requested repair, you were probably called disrespectful or unappreciative or whatever. And it's just a lie. It is, especially if you were a child and these were the adults in your life. No, not your job to fix. Your job is to state your boundary and what happened on your part of the experience. And then however that the other parties react, that's data. That's information. And from there, boundaries. So now it looks like, well, maybe I don't need to call you every single day. Maybe we don't need to talk every week. Maybe you don't need access to every portion of my life. Maybe it looks like, we'll just see each other on the holidays, or I don't really want your input on that. For some people, it's so extreme that sometimes you need a season of separation. And that's biblical. If you look at the story of Joseph, even when his family came back and they did not recognize him, because that was the beautiful work that God had done in him. Even when his family came back, he was watching to see how they moved first. And even when he forgave them, I think that he had already forgiven them because he loved them. But once he embraced them again as family, notice he didn't move them back into his house. They weren't people he talked to all the time. He said, I'm gonna move you to this safe and beautiful place that, when you do the Bible study on it, which is really great, was a safe distance away. It wasn't right in his home. It wasn't right in his neighborhood. They didn't have access to him all the time, because he still recognized, I love these people, but I don't trust the choices they're making. I don't trust the integrity scales they're working with, or whatever it is. You can love, and our job is to forgive, but forgiveness is not reconciliation. It's just not. Reconciliation takes repair and evidence over time, period. Boundary, structures, routine, financial stewardship, emotional regulation, nervous system safety and regulation. These are all things that I have learned coming out of the hardest season of my life. And if you're starting over, you're probably in that to starting to recognize some of those things too. And it is my joy and my pleasure to help you walk out some of those things, to share as I continue to learn and evolve. I used to think order was restricted. And this is actually really funny. When I was in college, my undergrad was creative writing, English, and I was fully into I thought I was gonna move to New York and be like a spoken word poet and just all this stuff. I just wanted, there's a type of poetry that's called free verse, and it's just off, boom, boom, boom. And I remember one time I actually was performing poetry like this, and the first couple of seconds were great. People were, oh wow, that's interesting. And then after about a minute and a half, it was very awkward because there was no structure. Freedom, spontaneity, chaos feels really exciting at first, feels fun until it's not. I then had a poetry teacher who I thought was the most boring man on the planet. He was the most monotone, wore the same outfit every day. He was a very sweet man, but I just was in a different seat. I was 20 years old in chaos. And so I didn't recognize his wisdom. And he saw the kind of poetry I was writing, and he was like, Sydney, I want you to write this structure. And I want you to write about nature. And I want it to be less explosive. And I thought, as a 20-something-year-old in chaos, I'm like, he just doesn't get my artistry. Very Erykah Badu, like, I'm an artist, I'm sent, blah, blah, whatever. What this man ended up teaching me, and I continue, like, is one of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned in my life. From form, from structure, from order comes freedom. Your life becomes more impactful when you have structure. When there is chaos, it's a mess. It's not free. It's actually bondage. As I started writing these poems in this form, I recognized I could actually express more. And being a mom of a little teaches you that their nervous system and our nervous systems need rhythms, needs routine that we can anticipate, that we can expect to feel safe. And actually, you have more freedom for spontaneity, for expression, for peace, for calm, to be more creative. It's like that saying that says, slow down and you'll get there faster. It's the same concept with structure and form. So where I used to look at it as restrictive, I now understand that without form, you cannot be free. I've also heard, like, peace is wealth. Being boring is the new wealthy. In 2026, if you're still walking around with your hair on fire, like, my nervous system can't handle you. Please find somewhere else to be. Peace is not boring. Peace is powerful. This channel is about rebuilding. So we've had our chat. I hope you have a little bit more understanding of who I am. And I want you to know that this is your place where you can also walk along and we can encourage each other to rebuild our finances, rebuild our faith, rebuild our confidence, rebuild self-trust, rebuild our lives. And the truth is, it's not gonna happen overnight, because this type of growth, healthy growth, especially when you've come from trauma where you're hypervigilant and your nervous system is literally trying to outrun the fear or the harm, you start to learn that freedom and wealth and happiness and joy is slow. It's one step at a time. It's daily progress. It's not being obsessed about getting it right. It's about doing the next right thing. So we're gonna talk about budgeting. We're gonna talk about health. We're gonna do fun home resets because your environment matters. Boundaries and faith, because I would not be here without God. So if that's something that doesn't rock with you, this isn't the corner for you. If you are someone who is a believer, great. If you're not sure, welcome in, because I would love to tell you how I just don't understand how you could not live with God. It's like Jesus is everything. We'll get into that. Every video here is going to be focused on how we get closer to being the woman that God has made us to be. Because the truth is, everything you've ever dreamed of, the life, the aesthetic, the relationship, the family, the money, whatever you've dreamed of as your highest and best does not even come close to what God has for you, or how he sees you, or how he loves you. And I am so excited to walk this journey out with you and to document this and to show you that it does get better. In fact, it gets way better, and sometimes a lot faster than you think. I hope that one day you look back and realize the season that almost broke you was actually the season that rebuilt you. Because I know that's true for me. I'm glad you're here. I'm Sydney. I'll see you in the next video.